Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy. This is episode number 131, Having Sex to Reduce My Stress. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast today. I knew I wanted to do a podcast like this one really soon, but I never knew how much fun it would be to go into such depth as I worked on putting this together. And I want to start off by sharing something I heard in a recent show that I was watching about marriage by Jordan Peterson, who is a well-known psychologist, and how it relates to my own experience with stress. He was talking about bringing two totally different people together into one marriage and how that takes some work. He gave some awesome advice to both the husbands and the wives, but what really stood out to me was what he said to the wives, probably because it was related to intimacy. He said to the wives, if you're not in the mood, get in the mood. He didn't go into much more detail about that because he was making other points in his presentation. But that sentence really got my brain going. It was such a simple sentence, and yet so many of my clients struggle with this exact thing. How to get in the mood to be intimate. So, of course, I had to turn to the dictionary. And I was shocked and surprised and totally obsessed with the fact that there were a lot of definitions for the word get. So, get ready because we are going to dive into it. The word get can be defined as to gain possession of, to receive as a return, to earn, or to beget, which means to procreate or produce, especially as an effect or outgrowth. To get also means to become affected by something, to seek out and obtain, to obtain and bring where wanted or needed, to cause to be in a certain condition, and to cause to come or to go. Now let's pause for just a minute here and really let this sink in. Now we know that with life coaching, our thoughts are at the core of all that we experience in life. Our thoughts are what trigger the specific feelings and emotions we experience to vibrate through our bodies. When we feel like we are not in the mood, mood often refers to the feeling and emotion that we have. So we are in essence saying that we don't have the feeling or emotion of wanting to be intimate with our spouse. We are saying that we are lacking the desire for it. But if we are lacking the mood and the feeling to be intimate, we can trace it back to what our thoughts are. Our own thoughts. Not our spouse's thoughts. And another huge principle of life coaching is that we are fully responsible for our own thoughts, which means we are fully responsible for our mood, since our thoughts trigger our mood. And since adults have the ability to choose which thoughts they want to think and when they want to think them, our thoughts are amazingly powerful. Now let's relate our thoughts to the definitions we have just listened to about what it would mean to get in the mood for intimacy. To get in the mood for intimacy would mean that we are to gain possession of our thoughts, especially about intimacy, so that we could gain possession of our feeling for intimacy, which means our desire for it. This is such valuable knowledge because so many of us think that this is outside of our control and that we are simply helpless human beings just waiting around for the magical feeling of desire to just show up more often and happen to us without any effort on our part. But no, it doesn't. It definitely does not work that way. And come on, ladies, women don't wait for magic to maybe show up. Women are the magic, and we sure as hell make the magic. We receive the emotion of being in the mood as a return for the thoughts that we think that cause us to feel amazing. To get in the mood for intimacy is something we earn through our own efforts in changing our thoughts from negative ones about intimacy or ourselves or our spouse to positive thoughts that set our hearts ablaze. We produce our desire to be in the mood as we try to develop, grow, and expand our understanding, our skills, and who we are as a person. Can we see how empowering this is? We have way more to say in how we experience desire than we might have thought. Now, let's keep going with some more definitions. To get means to cause to be subjected to obtain or receive by way of benefit or advantage, to overcome, to have an emotional effect on, to find out by calculation, and to make progress. Yes, these definitions are awesome. Now let's apply them to life coaching and how our thoughts are at the root of it. So if we are not in the mood for intimacy and we want to get in the mood for it, we have to cause our thoughts to be subjected to thinking more positive things about it. Do you actually know what the positive benefits of being intimate are, even just for your physical health? It really is an amazing list. And to get in the mood means that we receive it as we take the time to think of the ways that it benefits us. And this is something I have found that many women just don't do. They don't even consider the physical benefits or even think about it. In fact, they do quite the opposite. They focus on the benefits of sex for their husband, but not really for themselves. Then they get mad that their husband receives all of the wonderful benefits while they simply suffer through it without any benefits for themselves, when this is not really the case. But it's really hard to recognize the benefits if you don't even know what they are. And sadly, it's usually just the fact that women haven't taken the time to consider the benefits to their own physical health as a fabulous reason to get in the mood, and that those physical benefits, as well as their own vaginal health, are in and of themselves fabulous reasons for being sexually active with their husband. And have women taken the time to read about what happens to the body and the vagina when we stop having sex? That is not a fun read. But boy, it can change how you think about things and can make you feel more grateful for the benefits and may even help you feel more motivated to get involved in seeking out those benefits yourself and not waiting around for them. So I wanted to share with you a recent experience I had with this that was way more powerful than I thought it was going to be. Now, there are times in the past where I have approached getting in the mood for intimacy from a health benefit perspective. But to be honest, on a scale of 1 to 10, my effort level was probably only at a 2. So while I did see some benefit from it, it wasn't a huge benefit, probably because the level of benefit I experienced matched my level of effort. But since the physical health benefits had really been on my mind lately, I decided I would give it another shot. So one day I was feeling extremely stressed, way more than usual. And I knew that high stress usually meant that it was going to be extremely challenging to get in the mood for intimacy. And on a scale of 1 to 10, do you know how much I wanted to be intimate It was like a 1 with all that stress. But I decided to challenge all of my stressful thoughts and reasons, and I decided to approach it from a perspective of intimacy being a physical and mental benefit, and not as a sexual one for this particular situation, and more as a beneficial form of lowering my stress. I knew that it wouldn't be easy and that it would take a great deal of effort on my part. And this time, I would put real effort into it, like at a level 10. Now, since I knew the power of thoughts, I decided that I wanted to come up with a saying or a mantra that I could start thinking way before the time the stress-relieving sexual shenanigans were to begin. So probably around 5:30 p.m. or so, I started thinking, I want to have sex to reduce my stress. I decided to think this thought on purpose as much as I could before my husband and I got into bed later on that night. And wouldn't you know, by the time 10:30 p.m. rolled around, I had totally been able to get in the mood. I was ready and I wanted to be intimate. And I don't have a clue as to what my husband said or did from 5:30 to 10:30 p.m. and if it was good or bad or lame or awesome. What I did know was that I was ready to go and it felt totally natural. Now, I want to pause for a minute here because a lot of times we think that intimacy is supposed to be easy. Really? Says who? I mean, really, is there actually anyone that says that or teaches that? Because it's not. And yet so many of my clients think it's supposed to be easy, and that if it's not easy, something must be terribly wrong, either with them or with their spouse or with their marriage or with the entire concept of intimacy altogether. Marriage is challenging and intimacy is challenging. And it's meant to be that way, and it's totally okay. The reason I wanted to bring this up here is because when Nick and I first began the process of getting intimate that night, I was ready to go, but I still had to put in the effort to stay present in the moment and to stay mindful of the moment. During the first few minutes of our experience together, I kept repeating that mantra in my head. And I can't tell you how helpful this was. It was actually amazing. I felt so empowered that I had made the decision to be intimate to lower my stress. What a wonderful feeling it was to know that I was participating in self-care by keeping my physical health, my mental health, and my vaginal health at the forefront of my mind while being intimate. And once I was far enough along down the intimacy trek and entered into the phase of physical and sexual arousal, my body took over and I no longer needed my mantra at all. That's when things actually got a lot easier as nature kicked in and all of the body's natural responses to that situation were in full effect. I was so much more motivated, enthusiastic, and totally into the entire experience, all because my thoughts and my reasons were different. They were my own reasons, and they were meaningful, and that's what made all the difference. That's when all of the hard mental work and effort paid off, and the benefits kicked in. Now, it's well known that men sometimes approach intimacy as a way to relieve stress, and they usually don't think twice about it or have any shame around it. And yet so many of my female clients struggle with this concept for themselves. But I think we really need to re-examine this and think about this differently and challenge ourselves to think about intimacy as a way to lower our stress, and that both are valid and valuable reasons. And let me just tell you, and women, I hope you are really listening to this. The sex in and of itself was amazing. It was amazing because I was doing it for me to lower my stress, not just my husband's stress, and also for the benefits it would bring to me and my body, fully aware of the beautiful connection it would create between me and Nick as a result. And yes, the chemicals that course throughout my body and my brain as a result of having a full and complete and totally satisfying orgasm made that experience one of my top 10 intimate experiences with Nick. And the gratitude that I felt towards him for being the one that I could turn to in that unique way to help relieve my stress was also a wonderful thing to experience. Now, when our brain experiences those wonderful chemicals and the pleasure part of the brain has been engaged, it then wants to experience more of that and will even seek it out. And that's when things do start to become easier for us to get in the mood moving forward. Now, let's keep going. To get in the mood for intimacy and to feel the desire for it means to overcome what is in the way. Usually, it's our negative thoughts about our husband and what he is or isn't doing. This is why thought work through life coaching is so valuable. The two things in this world that cause humans the most suffering are the words that other people say and the things that other people do. And since we usually spend a significant amount of time with our spouse, it will usually be the things our spouse says and does that we feel takes us out of the mood. But we can overcome those negative thoughts using the self-coaching model. If you want more help on how to use the self-coaching model in your marriage and with intimacy, you are in luck. Because next month in February, we are launching our brand new monthly program called the Make It Meaningful membership, which will help you do just that. Keep your marriage a priority by using the life coaching skills every single month. I will explain a lot more about this in much more detail next week. But it's going to be amazing and so much fun. I literally can't wait. And just to let you all know right now, it's going to be totally affordable, only $39 a month. So if you've ever wanted to go deeper with coaching, but have been on the fence because of prices, this is a no-brainer. It's easy to say yes to $39 a month. And it's both spouses for the price of one. Okay, now, to get in the mood for intimacy means to find out how to feel that desire by calculation and then to be able to make progress. Are we catching this? This definition is an awesome invitation to each of us to actually self-observe and experiment and calculate how our efforts are going. In my course called The Emotional Intimacy Effect, Intimacy Beyond Sex, we actually do these types of calculations. We observe what our thoughts are about ourselves and our inadequacies when it comes to intimacy. We also observe our thoughts about our spouse and what we think they should be doing, but they're not doing, and how it affects our desire to be intimate with them. And we also observe our thoughts about intimacy itself and our thoughts in other categories as well. We observe how these types of thoughts and these blockers actually restrain our natural desire to be intimate and how it keeps that desire from coming forth. As we observe how often these blockers are showing up in our lives on a daily basis, our mind is expanded. If we do nothing, our desire to get in the mood will remain restrained. These types of calculations add up. And as we start to become more aware of them through this process, we can make the changes that are needed to make real progress. And if you do sign up for the Make It Meaningful membership next month, you will get that entire course for free. You will get to go through the process of defining your own reasons for being intimate, meaningful reasons, and reasons that matter to you, moving you away from spousal duty and more towards self-discovery. We will constantly be going through and focusing on different parts of that course in the membership to make sure that everyone is getting to the deep thought work that comes from life coaching. That's the reason this membership is called Make It Meaningful, because that's what makes all the difference. Being intimate for your own meaningful reasons doesn't feel like duty. It feels amazing. Now, we are getting close to the end of these definitions, so let's see how some of these can really help us dig even deeper. To get in the mood for intimacy means to become involved, to succeed in coming or going, to move oneself, to enter into a certain condition, and to acquire wealth. Now that sounds intriguing. So in order for us to get in the mood, we need to become involved. What a concept, right? So many of my clients want their spouse to do all the work, but this is not how it works. Women, we have to become involved in our own process of getting in the mood. And husbands have to be involved in their own process too, usually of bridling their mood and their passion so that it doesn't run amok. Each spouse has their own work to do when it comes to intimacy, especially their own thought work, so they can come together as two mature adults who are trying to do just that. And it is not the right approach for a wife to tell her husband, you bridle your desires and passions for intimacy, and then still make sure you do everything I like to get me in the mood. But I'm not going to work on any of that myself. And it is not the right approach for the husband to tell his wife, you need to increase your level of desire to match my level of desire for intimacy. And you have to be the one to initiate it all. And you also have to like it just as much as I do and be just as passionate about it as I am. And by the way, I'm not going to work on bridling any of that at all. We may not verbally say things in this way, but we often have those underlying thoughts. Now, this reminds me of something I heard recently on the radio. I don't know who said it, but it went something like this. Husbands, if you are having sex with your wife about once a week, consider that part of your life as fabulous. Congratulations, you have a very healthy sex life. If you have sex with your wife twice in 1 week, consider that to be an extraordinary and beautiful blessing in your life. And if you have sex with your wife 3 times in 1 week, consider her to be the most amazing and the most sensual woman on the earth, right? Because she is choosing to be intimate with you, knowing everything that she knows about you. You didn't have to convince her to be intimate with you. We need to remember these things and remember that being intimate once a week is considered to be a very healthy sex life. Falling below that level is where most problems occur. Each spouse would do well to do some of their own thought work on this concept. So, all of this means that we are the ones that determine if we succeed in our efforts to get in the mood, and whether or not we were able to get the desire for intimacy to come to us, or if we were able to get it to go away from us. That is something we totally have a say in, and something we actually have control over. We are the ones that are able to move ourselves in the direction we want to go. If you haven't really been able to get yourself in the mood for intimacy, you probably just didn't know how to, or you didn't know just how much of an effect your thoughts were having on your level of desire. To get in the mood for intimacy means that you actually choose to enter into the condition of that mood. And you can only do that if you are having empowering or grateful or positive thoughts that would naturally lead you in that direction. All you need is one powerful thought. Just one thought that feels better than the old thought that keeps you resistant will be enough. To get something means to acquire wealth. And while our first tendency might be to think of monetary riches, wealth is also having an abundance of valuable materials and resources. Think of all that you can learn about yourself as you challenge your thoughts through the lens and context of intimacy. You will uncover an enormous amount of wealth and wisdom, valuable resources that will help you and your marriage for the rest of your lives. And speaking of wealth and riches, we want to give a little shout out to some friends of ours who also started a podcast around the same time as us called Richest Men in Town with Mike Freeman and Tyler Gould. Nick has actually been a guest on their podcast twice, and each week they talk to someone special that they know about their life experiences and the gospel and how those things made them rich on a much higher level that had absolutely nothing to do with money. Their episodes are a little longer than ours, so if you have a few projects that need some of your attention, that is a great podcast to listen to. And finally, to complete the last of the definitions, to get means to be able and to succeed in becoming. This means that as adults, our brain actually has the ability and is able to do things it couldn't do when we were younger, especially when it comes to the way we think about the adult topic of intimacy. At our age, right now, our brain is able to think about it in more mature and rational ways, not just in fairy tale or in fantasy ways. This also means that our brain is able to think about our thinking and to analyze the thoughts we have about our thoughts, especially about intimacy. This is the valuable thought work that comes with life coaching so that we can challenge the thoughts that are blocking us from moving forward and exchange them for the thoughts that empower our own progress. Our brain's abilities allow us to create new thoughts from scratch, the kind of thoughts that motivate us from within, without being coerced or convinced, and the kinds of thoughts that feel energizing and exciting. If we are not feeling these positive emotions from our thoughts, we are probably not really doing thought work or haven't done it deep enough yet. Now, as we conclude this episode, I want to leave you all with a scripture that has to do with the word get. And I love how well it relates to what we've been discussing today. This scripture is found in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7. And it says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding." All of the things that we have talked about today will give us wisdom. I hope that this next week we will take this wisdom and put it into practice 1,000 times so that we can calculate the effect it's having on our lives. Because remember, the more you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you will join me again next week.